Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast for our final segment of the day, where the MLB trade deadline was yesterday, of course, and I'm going to be diving into the Boston Red Sox. This is my team, so, sort of giving a little bit of an insider's perspective here, and ultimately, this is a franchise that the trust with the fan base has been tarnished over the course of the past few years with the way that they have not been treating themselves as a big market franchise. But, they ended up making a change in terms of leadership this offseason, fired Chaim Bloom, ended up bringing in Craig Breslow to be their president of baseball operations, and this was his first deadline. I thought he made out pretty well, ultimately, all things considered. This was the first time in the past few years that they put some actual effort into buying and trying to improve their roster in the now. They've been doing a little bit of this buying and selling, mixed bag over some of the past couple deadlines, and this year they were willing to move off of prospects, and we'll sort of dive into specifically what that means as we go on here. But in terms of the major league roster, there was a clear priority for the Red Sox to go after pitching, which was definitely a need for them. They end up bringing in a starter in James Paxton, who made his first start for the Red Sox last night. Ultimately not quite the start that I'm sure he dreamed up. 4 1/3 inning pitched, 6 hits, 1 walk, 3 earned runs, 5 strikeouts. Only 3 earned runs, but there were 6 scored while he was in the game because his defense really was a mess behind him. They had 3 errors in this game, and they really blew it for him in the 5th inning. He should have at least made it into the 6th, but obviously it was a little bit of a mess behind him, so I thought that his start was fine. Again, unfortunate the way that it played out for him, but I do think that he is going to at least be, a name that you can rely on every 5th day a little bit more than you could in the past. Cooper Criswell gets bumped out of the starting rotation as a result of this, and I've talked about it before. I do actually kind of like Cooper Criswell and the way that he's been pitching, at least as of late. But he gets moved into the bullpen. I was curious whether they were going to send him to the minors and have him sort of work things out there, maybe be an option for them next year. But it sounds like they're going to keep him on the active roster and have him pitch out of the bullpen, which could end up being a nice addition for them, considering we know they very desperately need depth in the bullpen. Last night, he pitched the final 3 innings, and he did so with 0 hits and 0 walks, in what was ultimately, pretty flawless for him. So I think that that's something to feel good about for sure if you are, Criswell, and what this could look like of him out of the bullpen. So that's something that's definitely going to be important to monitor going forward. Not sure how much better you could have really gotten in terms of making a deal for a starting pitcher. Not sure how much more you could have done than James Paxton. Jack Flaherty ended up being really the only more so front-end guy that was moved. But like I mentioned, it was pitching all around, where it was James Paxton. It was 2 bullpen arms in Lucas Sims and Luis Garcia. Garcia moves me a little bit more than Sims does, but either way, it just takes one of them to hit. Now, they're probably going to be put into some situations in terms of leverage that maybe they wouldn't have been receiving if they were on a different team. But the Red Sox, they just need help, especially at this point, while Justin Slayton and Chris Martin are both dealing with injuries. So again, you could see this bullpen actually end up being, again, if one of these guys ends up playing out for them, if Slayton and Martin can stay healthy and, give you solid production, the bullpen could become, significantly stronger. And it's needed, because you look at what happened last night against the Seattle Mariners. Every guy the Mariners rolled out had an ERA under 3. And there might not be anybody on the Red Sox that even, out of the bullpen does even have an ERA under 3. Shots Below the Belt says, as an Angels fan, the deadline gives me Vietnam flashbacks. Last year, the Angels could have traded Ohtani for a haul, but didn't pull the trigger. Then he signs with the Dodgers. So, first off, Angels fan, gotta have some sympathy there. Not that I'm standing on any sort of a high horse right now with the Red Sox, but the Ohtani debate was very interesting at the deadline last year, and I can't 1,000% blame them, but they could have gotten a historic haul in return if they did pull the trigger, so I definitely do feel for you on that one. But additionally, with the Red Sox, they add Sims and Garcia. They then also flipped Nick York, who was once one of the top prospects in the Red Sox farm systems, to go and acquire Quinn Priester, who is sort of, equivalent in terms of getting towards being MLB ready. Priester has made a few appearances in the major leagues through a couple of years here, but still, I believe, just 25 years old. I'd have to double check that one there, but Priester is just a position of need as opposed to Nick York, who probably would have ultimately... Priester's just 22, actually. So, no, that's not right. He's 23. Sorry. But I think that, York eventually probably would have gotten blocked by the Red Sox. He was Rule 5 eligible, so there was a good chance that he would have been snatched up anyways. So the Red Sox sort of just parlay that into more of a position of need, which is going to get a pitcher, and he can be a little bit of a developmental project there. They did go and they added one bat. Specifically, we talked about how they needed a right-hander. They get Danny Jansen, who did look pretty good in his debut with the Sox on Sunday night against the Yankees. 2 hits and a walk in 4 plate appearances, and they had him be a designated hitter for that game. I am very curious to see how they ultimately decide to even out him and Connor Wong. Wong having an incredible season for them, one of their few right-handed bats already, so it does feel maybe a little bit of being counterproductive, considering you go and you desperately need a right-handed bat you add at the position where you already have one. But I think that it maybe even speaks a little bit to the Red Sox toying around with what the future of this roster looks like. Jansen's just going to be a rental, and he was very cheap to go out and get, so there is that. But also at the same time, when you're talking about Connor Wong, he's been very impressive for them the past couple seasons, but Kyle Teal, who they drafted in the first round of last year's draft, is sort of expected to eventually be the franchise catcher, and this sort of opens up an opportunity for Connor Wong to maybe get some more reps in the infield, which he's been all right when he's done so in the past, and it is an interesting sort of idea of could they end up having him take over as maybe a second baseman, which they have desperately needed for a number of years now. So I think that ultimately pretty good pickup there as well. And again, they didn't have to give up all too much compensation in terms of the minor leagues. They sent out a number of prospects, which is, sort of unlike them in the past, and almost is encouraging to me that they were actually willing to spend some instead of just sitting on their precious farm system and hoping that, Red Sox fans sort of drink the Kool-Aid on that one. But all of the majority of the guys that they sent out were all Rule 5 draft eligible anyways, so just kind of reset the price a little bit, and they held on to the important prospects, and I think that they are going to be in a pretty good position going forward, where I talked about the bullpen. Again, Slayton and Martin, when they come back, they're more so your high leverage guys. We will see what happens with Garcia and Sims in terms of whether or not they end up eating up innings at the end of games as well, but it was just very clear that they needed an upgrade there. And then, again, on the note of injuries, you have Tristan Casas making his rehab debut last night. Wasn't very good in it, 0 for 3 in that game, but it's at least, a sign that he's probably on his way back soon. Vaughn Grissom, even though he's been nothing for them, he's expected to start rehab soon. The Red Sox are 2 games out of that last wild card spot of actually, the last 2 wild card spots, as the Twins and the Royals are both locked up. But I think that, the Red Sox, they got better around the margins. It wasn't a hard buy, but that was never really the expectation for this team, and I don't know if it necessarily would have been fully worth it anyways. I feel like this was headed in the right direction, at least showing that they're not scared to trade prospects, and ultimately for Breslow, I don't think he needed to make some home run deal in his first trade deadline, but let me know if you feel like they didn't do enough, because I know that is sort of a complaint from a number of Red Sox fans. But that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to host this show. Remember to like, follow, subscribe wherever you keep up with us. Be sure to check us out on social media as well for more exclusive short content. And we will be back tomorrow afternoon, same time as always at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We will see you then. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.